Now, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Nuclear Forces in the Reagan administration, current president of the Center for Security Policy, Frank Gaffney. Frank, it's good to have you on. You are one of the most knowledgeable people on this issue. Can you answer the question of why what happened in San Jose, which appears to be a relatively well-planned, sophisticated attack on a substation, why it was quiet for so long?
I think a determined effort was made to conceal from the public what had happened. You can rationalize it as an effort to prevent copycats from repeating this elsewhere. You could also, I think, rightly conclude that, as has been the case consistently for years, Jeanine, we've seen the electric utilities try to conceal from the public the vulnerability of their infrastructure. And you used the term earlier in the program with my friend Jim Inhofe about cover-ups. This is, I'm afraid, a cover-up of one kind or another for whatever reason. And the public safety has been jeopardized not just because terrorists who conducted this attack deliberately, purposefully, skillfully are still at large, but because the grid is vulnerable to much more than just physical attack of this kind, and nothing is being done to remedy it. And I can't tell you how appreciative we are for the focus that you've been trying to bring to this needed corrective action.
But Frank, what stuns me is no one has been arrested or charged. You've got people shooting for 19 minutes, going into some kind of underground station to cut the telephone wires, and the FBI says, no, this is just vandalism, and we continue to sift through the evidence. You're kidding, right? Sift through the evidence. But let me move on to what can we do now. We understand, and you understand, and the viewers who've been watching Justice know that this can be devastating, and end of civilization as we know it. Why is everyone, why are the local power companies not doing anything?
I think there are two basic reasons, and it's not just the local power companies, it's the utilities sort of trade association, I think of it as, the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, or NERC, which, as you mentioned in your earlier conversation, has this sweetheart deal under this 2005 legislation to basically be the regulatory agency. There's a federal agency called the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, but it doesn't have the teeth to do anything. It's up to NERC to decide what's going to be done and not done. And by the way, it generally doesn't want to do anything. I think because of cost concerns, but in the end, they'll pass those costs on to ratepayers if need be. But the bigger problem is they don't want to jeopardize this sweetheart deal and have people telling them they have to invest in hardening the infrastructure against everything from this kind of attack, which has happened now. And this wasn't any dress rehearsal. This was a real and narrowly averted, successful destruction of a critical piece of the electric grid that would have blackened out, I'm afraid, probably Silicon Valley and much of the San Francisco Bay Area probably for years.
All right, so Frank,
with devastating effects.
What we have here is now we know the electromagnetic pulse can result of a solar flare, natural, or by a nuclear device detonated into the atmosphere. Now we've got people who are actually shooting at the electrical substations. So, and you know what? I don't buy for 1 minute the idea that, they're worried about copycats. That's a bunch of hogwash. If they were worried about it, they'd do something about it. And so what is your organization doing to try to get legislation passed on this? The Center for Policy.
Well, we've put together a coalition. We call it the EMP Coalition. We're very pleased to have former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich and former Director of Central Intelligence under Bill Clinton, Jim Woolsey, as our honorary co-chair. We've pulled together the best minds in this country, I think, on the vulnerabilities of the grid and what needs to be done to fix it. The U.S. military, Jeanine, as you know, has been spending billions of dollars over 50 years hardening key parts of the military. So what do we use? We use surge protectors to protect the key things like these transformers that were nearly blown up in San Jose. We use capacitors to shunt some of the surge around them, and we can use physical protections, Faraday cages, and barriers of other kinds to protect them as well. These are practical measures. We know how to do it. They're not that expensive. We've got to protect particularly these 2,000 or so transformers that truly are the critical component of our 21st century society's survival.
All right, Frank Gaffney, always good to hear your insight. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you.